Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott and I've got the full team today, joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Zach Ingo Finch and Oscar. How you doing, Oscar? You right?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Yeah, and Zach, you right?
Yeah, all good, mate.
Good. We are still on international break. It has been 3.5 years, but here we are still talking about the wonders of international football. And even in the dire and struggling times as a Saints fan, where there is not a lot of hope left, we do still have some players that are considered of an international calibre.
Baffling.
Yeah, I mean, take that as a comment on international football, if you will. But we thought we would have a little look back at how all of our players who are away on international duty have got on. If there are any sort of impressive things that stand out, any sort of disappointments or worries, or a couple of injuries to talk about a little bit later on as well. And we'll just go from there. So I've got the list in front of me, and I guess we'll just go through it and then discuss a bit. So we'll start at the start. Tyler Diblin came out today just before recording. I saw an article that we've put a valuation of him of £100 million. So
it's a bit. But I think the idea is to deter suitors, right? But by the looks of it, if he's not signing a new contract, he's already kind of decided where he wants to go. And like, if it means that it boosts up his price by a couple of million, sure, whatever. I saw that. I think it was Saints marching. We're talking about how they were talking about how Bayern supposedly coming in for him. I just don't see anyone matching 100 million. But also, like, some of the players have gone to Manchester United. Unfortunately, under Ratcliffe, like, it looks like Manchester United won't be making the insane levels of transfers. But like, maybe he fancies a trip back to Chelsea for 100 million, right? Lavia went for like 55. And he's played all of like 12 minutes of football the last 2 years.
It's a crazy number. I think Tyler Diblin is a player of such almost like unlimited potential. He is like a raw talent, but for effectively an unproven 18-year-old who has played in the worst team in Premier League history.
I think in fairness, Anthony went for 70 million, didn't he? If that's
no, if you're using that as the benchmark, maybe 100 million is not enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he's the worst Premier League player of all time, at least that I've ended up ever watching.
Yeah, I think probably the logic behind it is do a season with us in the Championship, and then we'll sell him next year if we don't come back up. If not, we're back in the Prem. Who knows? Maybe we'll sign another contract. But
if we get real funny about it, though, right? Like we can force it. Like, if I remember rightly, we've even got like extension clause and things like that. It's just that you don't want it to get that messy, and I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. But like, I'm kind of on the Greg side of the fence as well, where season in the Championship and see where we are. But also, if someone was to put in silly money,
I think anything around the 40-50 million mark, it would be daft not to. But if they genuinely see the potential in him being substantially greater than that amount of money, then fair play, and I hope they hold and stick to their guns. But you're right. I think it's just a number that's been put out because, like, well, if we say 100 and take 75, that's still better. So
the idea that he would go for more than Van Dijk,
high, like,
that's
crazy.
Baffling. But
he has been away. It is, but he has been away with the England under-19s, who had a pretty successful 3 games in this international period. He played 90 minutes in a 1-0 win over Portugal, where the match report I read said he looked very industrious down the right-hand side, alongside the right-back he was playing with. He managed 67 minutes in a game against the Welsh under-21 side, where England won 2-0, where he had a couple of decent shots, found quite a bit of space behind the back line, and had one shot blocked, which could have been a goal. And great, good. I hope he gets into goal scoring positions more. That's what we need from him.
Forget how young he is, right? Like, that's the thing. And a couple of our players that have gone, I saw Spores came out and said that Sam Amu and Magoma he wouldn't have let go. But like, it is one of those things that when you're like, I was like, oh, I swear it was like the under-23s, but it just points out like, oh man, he's basically like, he's younger than my little brother, Greg. That just messes with my head a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's good that he's had a solid outing, though. That's always nice to see.
Brought on as a sub in their 0-0 draw against Turkey. So it's a good run of games in that sort of England youth setup. Do you think there's good value, Oscar, in being involved in the young internationals in that sort of way?
I think so. I think it gives you the experience of it without the pressure of doing it on the big stage. And obviously England are in a position now where their first team are very strong. The under-21s, under-23s are very strong. I don't know if you saw earlier in the week that the under-21s, England under-21s squad value is over £400 million in itself.
Good Lord.
So that probably is understandable why Dibling's not getting a sniff. But yeah, so I think it is valuable for them. It's a way of getting international exposure or experience of it in a different way than they would otherwise. Or if they were from another country, they'd be thrown straight in, and maybe, who knows, at 19 that might be a little bit much. So yeah, I think valuable.
Also, it's nice, right, to especially for the players' mentality, which is something we've struggled with a lot this season, to like be able to win games again, right? Like that's such an important unspoken part that we're missing out on.
I think also to be able to get out of the environment's probably not going to hurt either.
Yeah.
Unless the only other thing with international football, and it probably happens at youth stages as well, is how much tapping up goes on, or encouragement from other teams' players to move across. But
Yes. Okay, moving on. The list of players I've got is based chronologically off of their first game. So it might seem random, but there is logic. The next player on my list is Yuki Sugawara, who obviously has gone away with Japan. He was an unused sub in their game where they beat Bahrain 2-0 and became the first team to qualify for the 2026 World Cup, which is pretty nuts. It's coming up soon.
Yes. Still thinking about the 2020 that happened in 2021. That's where my brain's at.
Yeah, time isn't
talking about it the other day. It's very upsetting.
He also played 62 minutes of the 0-0 draw with Saudi Arabia after that. So sort of still very much involved in rotation with their squad and getting minutes for them as well. Can only be a good thing, right?
Yeah, if he's going to remain our player. I don't know if you saw he was linked with Napoli this morning.
Yeah.
Which is a bit...
The summer's going to be an interesting thing one way or
another.
Yeah,
we already discussed it, but I got a bit of I love the Samurai Blues. I love Japan again. I think I've talked about it before ever since I watched the Confederations Cup game against Brazil when Kazuki Honda scored an absolute screamer of a goal. I've kind of low-key followed them, especially when we had Yoshida captaining them for a little bit as well. So yeah, it's always nice to see him do well.
Is he still in their squads, Yoshida?
I think he retired from international football now, but I think he's I want to say that he's like an ambassador for the Japan Football Players Association is what he's doing nowadays. And obviously, he's still leading the line at LA Galaxy, so he's a bit too busy. But they've got enough talent in their squad now that they have people on the bench who are known players, which is. Yeah, I think they're potentially one of the ones to watch. But then,
that's crazy. There's a couple later on down the list where I looked at the match reports and the lineups of the international teams and thought, "Wow, that is some squad out of the blue." Some interesting international squads for sure. Okay, moving on. Ryan Manning playing for the Republic of Ireland. Had 2 appearances as well. He got 79 minutes in a 2-1 win over Bulgaria away. And then was a second half substitute in their 2-1 win over Bulgaria at home, with their 4-2 win on aggregate in the League of Nations playoffs, which I'm not going to pretend to understand why there are playoffs.
Did Bazunu get a run in, or is he still left out? I'm assuming he's not managed to catch back up since injury.
He wasn't on the list of the international guide, so I'm assuming not.
They would do loan players as well, because I'm pretty sure Ronnie Edwards was doing something. But
Ronnie Edwards also wasn't on my list, so maybe.
I'm sorry. Have I caught you out here?
It's all right. We can fix it. He was back in the squad. I don't know if he played.
Okay.
I think, to be fair, Kelleher's been playing a bit recently, isn't he? So
yeah,
yes, he's been playing really well for like Liverpool as well. So either way, that's good. Like again, Manning was one of the little surprises of the season, right? I don't think we ever expected much of him, and he's done all right. But it depends. Is it that Ryan Manning's a really good player, or is it the caliber of our squad is significantly worse than we thought? Why not? Can't it be a bit of both?
yeah. The answer is probably somewhere right in the middle of those two things, right? Like,
either way, solid international. It's nice to still have a solid international.
yeah, just confirmation that Kelleher started in goal for both of Ireland's games and
was
stayed on for
any
90 minutes.
involvement for Will Smallbone?
Wasn't in the squad.
Still out of injury, if I remember rightly,
Yeah.
because they didn't want to risk him. Because at the moment, obviously, that's the other thing of international football is years ago they'd kind of play through it, and now, especially if it's not like actual tournaments, they seem to kind of just go, "Oh, you've had a slight knock, or there is a bruise on the right hand side of your knee. We're going to send you back to your parent club because we do not want to risk having that argument," which is like good and bad, I guess, right? I mean, arguably, it's anything that is about extending the shelf life of the player is good and looking after them, especially considering the amount of games that people have to play club football wise. It's kind of nuts when you think about it.
It is. Okay, well, I'm going to carry on through our list, but first, time for a break and a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body.
Okay, and we are back. Okay, so next entry on the list, rather an unimpressive showing for Joe Aribo, who was an unused substitute in both games in Nigeria's 2-0 win over Rwanda and their 1-1 draw with Zimbabwe. So it's a long way to fly for not a lot for our key centre back.
It's going to be our key centre back with the rest of them being out, isn't it? Yeah, what can you say? I feel bad for him a little bit, but also if they've got better people to play. Sometimes it does baffle me, some of the call-ups, though, where you're like, why are you bothering to call people up if you know you're not going to play them? I know that you need to have backups. Like it's difficult, right, finding that balance, but you're right, it's a long way to go back and forth over the space of a couple of days. But then I do see sometimes some of the players just, like, you got a match on Saturday and they're like halfway across the world on Thursday.
Yeah.
And like, I know that there have been other players that have been criticised quite heavily in the past for that. But at the same time, like, you can't tell these people how to live their lives. That's mad. But yeah, you got to wonder what that does to you. Especially,
good.
Especially was I think it was Joe Aribo that was caught up with, like, when they got stuck with visa issues and were like stuck in a bus station in Libya for like 15 hours, 16 hours. I think it was Joe Aribo, like one of the last times that he played internationally, because he ended up, I can't remember who it was. I don't think it was him, but it was somebody else from the Nigeria squad tweeting out about being stuck in this bus station. Like, guys, like we haven't even got water. We've been here 15 hours. What is going on? So like, I feel like it's not exactly like probably the luxury that you should be not used to, but like, it's going to have an effect, right? Is where I'm at. The point that I'm trying to get to.
Moving on to Matty Fernandez, who went away with Portugal under-21s, who played 46 minutes in a 1-0 loss to Romania's under-21s, and then rather spectacularly lost 4-2 to England's under-21s, who I noted also featured Ronnie Edwards playing for the England under-21s as a substitute. So, yeah, not him getting back into winning ways, unfortunately. Just a couple of losses on the card there.
Again, not massively surprising against that England under-21s. I think who I think they did lose to France, but obviously quite a strong group, more or less made up of at least squad first team players, but probably some starters as well. So not massively strong. Romania is a bit of a surprise. Didn't anticipate they'd have a hugely strong youth international section given their first team, but who knows?
Yeah, the next player on my list, as I took the list from the official international guide on the Saints website, which obviously was published before all of the events. So I've got Ramsdale for England, where he was rather unceremoniously dumped or something. Any clarity from any of you guys about what actually happened?
I think they just didn't pick him. Just didn't need him. And can you really, I know he's had an okay season for us, but is he the best goalkeeper in England? Genuine question to the class.
But then I ask, why call him up in the first place just to drop him out like that?
That's what I think. We spoke about it on the original preview. I think they called up 4 or 5 goalkeepers. So, they obviously weren't going to take all of them. I'm surprised it was Ramsdale that was the one that got the chop rather than like a Trafford or something. But, because I could see long term, if he goes elsewhere and has a good season next year, then he could certainly be challenging. And what's Pickford now? 31, 30, 32, something like that. There's going to be some... Huh?
He's got at least 10 years in him at 31, 32.
Oh, yeah.
He's a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But, I think there's enough quality of goalkeepers in there that is going to be a fierce competition behind Pickford, because he seems to be very much resolute number one choice. And I think fairly, because, again, he's never let England down, so...
Slightly on topic then, off the Ramsdale thing, we think that he should be at that kind of level. Where do we genuinely see him going at the end of the season? Because if he wants to get first team minutes, is he just going to do what he's done so far and go to a Leeds and then end up relegated again next season? Because how many relegations can you get under your belt?
I can see him going to Bournemouth, who will possibly have European football next year based on their form at the moment as well.
Yeah, I could see that. I think he's quite...
They've only got their keeper on loan at the moment, right?
So, Kepa from Chelsea, right?
Speaking of that, I know Chelsea linked with him, but if Kepa goes back, then they're going to have about 10 first-team goalkeepers next season. So I wouldn't put it past them to sign another one. Have an outfield team full of goalkeepers.
They have about 1,000 players as well, right? At this point, you could fill the entirety of the Premier League with Chelsea players. It'll be interesting to see where Ugachukwu ends up going, to be perfectly honest, because that would be back into the first team. Anywho, sorry, Greg, on to your next one. I just thought that was an interesting side.
It is interesting, but I think that he's not going to be short of options. Is the real answer? I think he can.
I do think he's got to be careful of how many clubs, because I still think at the moment it's something that people sometimes mention, but not really something that's major. He is starting to knock on the door of one of the most relegated goalkeepers. I think Ben Foster's still got the title at the moment, but maybe that's what he is, a modern day Ben Foster. There are a lot of goalkeepers out there.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to rattle someone with that opinion.
Okay, next on my list, Kamaldeen Sulemana, who's got away with Ghana. He was an unused sub most recently in their 3-0 win against Madagascar, but was subbed on in a 5-0 win against Chad. The most interesting thing I was able to find about that game, that one of the goal scorers for Ghana in that game was Salisu. So...
I did also see apparently someone ran on the pitch and had a 100-day jail sentence for it, which is fun.
Amazing. That's that Ghana squad is the squad I was talking about earlier. That is just absolutely stacked with talent. I looked through it, I'm like, wow, they could be real contenders for something down the line. That's a crazy stacked squad. Okay, so 2 big names left on the list, but first we're going to take a break and have a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so we are back. As alluded to earlier, A couple of names left on the list and a couple of potential injury concerns coming out of it. So starting off with Yanni B. Jan Ben Narek went away with Poland. Did manage the full 90 against Lithuania in a 1-0 win. So not only a win, a nice clean sheet there, which is nice to see. But unfortunately had to come off after 46 minutes with a head injury against Malta in what ended up being a 2-0 win for Poland. So
that's worrying, isn't it? That's like 3 out of 4 games in recent times that he's ended up, well, I think it's 5. But the amount of blows to the head that guy's had in quick succession is slightly worrying to me.
He's actually, I seem to think, in the past he's had quite a few as well. Didn't he land on his neck at one point, or land on his head at one point a year ago or so? And I seem to recall he's had a few.
It's not great, is it?
No, it's nasty, and I can't remember. I can't remember what game it was in the Euros we saw where they almost. I'm surprised they didn't call the game off. I can't remember which team it was. I want to say Hungary, where somebody got absolutely clattered and had injuries, and I understand why they take concussion protocols and that kind of a lot seriously, because it's so. What we need to do is look back at Petr Cech and stuff like that and understand why. And was it Ryan Mason who had his skull fractured? Who was it? Hull? Am I making that up? Okay, good. Not just making things up randomly, but it's. I think from a Saints perspective, it's worrying. He's one of our better players. I think that we were slightly more comfortable in defence in the game, not against Wolves, but the game before when we actually had centre backs playing the centre back position. And
how long do you think it is before Ben Narek gets one of those Petr Cech skull caps?
Just start wearing it now. At least that way.
With some bubble wrap.
Yeah, just some nice little fashion statement as well.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it is a concern, and hopefully a speedy recovery. And then the final name on my list, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, who went away with England's under-21s, as we previously alluded to, played 61 minutes in a 5-3 loss to the French under-21s team, and then after the game was sent back to Southampton for a scan on a thigh injury, which was the last I was able to find on it was commented from the under-21s manager saying that it was not a particular worry, but just a precautionary measure, a better safe than sorry kind of deal. So fingers crossed, I guess, on that. I don't know.
I think it's one of those where it's frustrating for us if he's going to be injured. If it's going to ward off people trying to sign him next season, then I'm not as concerned. Keep him on board.
Who's it going to leave us with, right? Because Stevens at the moment can't manage a full game, so that's going to be Bioniq,
Joe Aribo, Carl Walker-Peters.
Yeah, we don't play Wood, so James Bree might come back in. So Carl Walker-Peters, James Bree, Armel Bioniq, Wellington, Yuki Sugawara, right? That's and then maybe Paul Onuachu, as I said yesterday, because for the fight.
That could be a bit of tactical genius there.
Put Stevens up front. Well, Paul Onuachu in defence.
You think that Bioniq ran in slow motion back from a corner to track back? I want to see you watching Paul Onuachu running at full speed.
Nah, you have to keep him right back all the time, pretty much with the goalkeeper, and then just hope when the ball gets pinged, it just comes off his head at the right angles. There you go.
With that, I can't believe Nigeria is sleeping on a front two combination of Oshimen and Onuachu. Could seriously do some damage.
Yeah, he's done all right, internationally previously as well. I think he's obviously lost his place because there's a lot of the African squads are significantly better than I think they used to be nowadays, and the competition for those places and in those teams are a lot harder than they were. So especially sort of the big ones like Nigeria and Ghana and stuff. So
yeah, they've got some pretty stacked squads. Hopefully that makes the World Cup very interesting.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping it's not just going to be like France and Spain in the final again or something like that, or Argentina, Brazil.
I can't help but you don't. Do you not believe it's coming home then, Zach?
So Greg asked me this question yesterday, and I tactically responded with, "I will get excited and put all of my all in if we get to the final. Up until that point, I will not believe it because I have been hurt too many times before." And that's where I'm at with it. I'm very aware that Greg's like, no, it's definitely coming home, mate, and we'll start wearing England merchandise about a year before the World Cup even starts. So
yeah, that's it. It's got to be done.
I'm very. I thought that we had some good international games. I'm still very skeptical that we will get to that level. Maybe Tuchel will help us get there. Maybe he won't. Is success for him to have to win it? Sure. Do we have a better chance than ever? Maybe, but I would say that as good as our team is, a lot of the teams around us are also very good. And it's not like the level. It's not like the time of the golden generation where a lot of the squads around us had one or two good players, and we had a really, really solid squad. And that's probably quite disrespectful to other teams at the time, but also, I genuinely said no. I am not a huge believer, but I will believe if we get to the final. They need to prove to me they can get to the final. Then I will think about it coming home. Then I'll book the day off.
Well, with that almost optimistic outlook from Zach, that is the end of my list of Saints away on international duty, which was still a surprisingly high number. Some good wins in there, some solid minutes, good performances. Let's hope that translates onto the pitch and we get something next week against Crystal Palace. That's the hope.
We're going to walk through the door, mate, and just be like, oh, back here.
That's it. Right, well, that is all we've got time for. Thank you very much to everyone for listening. Thanks for joining me, Zach and Oscar. We will be back tomorrow with something else. Until then, we'll see you then.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.